Well, we now want to get back to that report by Noah Kipkemboi, where he spoke to some of the Kenyans and just asking them what are their expectations around the taxation measures.
President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday, a lot of emphasis and a raft of measures touching on taxation to combat COVID-19. The question is, will this affect the economy? Will it impact the people of Kenya, who a majority of the people are being affected by this raft of changes, like doing away with pay-as-you-earn, taxation, that tax for, people earning 24,000 and below. Such changes, how will it affect the individual Kenyans at large? Right now, I'm joined by an economist, Joshi Gitao from Mentori Economics. Joshi, looking at the president yesterday announced these changes, does it touch on the broader base of Kenyans or just a few?
Well, these changes are mostly directed to workers in the formal sector, which is only about 17% of the Kenyan population. The vast majority, about 83%, about 16.4 million workers are in the informal sector. So they're unlikely to be touched by any of the measures announced yesterday, apart from perhaps the reduction in VAT when they go to the supermarket to get a few items. But in terms of the income tax payee measures, it doesn't affect them.
So you're saying it is affecting people in the formal sector.
Yes.
What can be done to reach out? Even before we go to the SMEs, because they touched on the, turnover tax, which is, cut out for SMEs. But for the broader people, the broader majority of the people in the country, what are some of the changes that could be tweaked into these ones to make sure that they are touched?
Yeah, I think the president touched a bit on this in terms of increasing the direct cash transfers to the elderly and orphans and vulnerable children. So I think what is required now is to put money directly in the pockets of workers who will find themselves out of work or unable to go to work due to this kind of layoffs we are seeing, and also generally measures to reduce, to discourage people from going to their places of work. So what is required are direct cash transfers.
And the cash transfer that we've seen is targeted on, the elderly, the vulnerable in this society.
Yes.
It's been increased by 10 billion shillings. Yes. That will go a long way to change.
For the orphans and the vulnerable children, as well as the elderly, currently they're receiving about 2,000 shillings, which they get every 2 months. So by my estimate, I was looking at the expenditure that had been allocated to this program. The recurrent bit is about 15 billion. So an increase in 10 billion is almost double the current allocation. So maybe an increase maybe in the order of 1,000 shillings to these groups. Well, of course, these are just back of the envelope calculations, but those are my initial estimates.
Yes, turnover tax. Yes. It has been a huge talk before we had COVID-19 come across in the country targeting the informal sector.
Yes.
It's been reduced from 3% of your gross sales in a month to 1%. This touching, Mama Mboga, they call it the Mama Mboga tax. This reduction of 3 to 1%.
Yes.
What is the expected impact of that?
Well, I think the incidence is unclear. It's a new tax. I don't think any figures have been released about the revenue collection from this. But yeah, it's a good measure. Any measure that is likely to increase incomes for small business holders, especially in the informal sector, like you're saying, the Mama Mbogas and other small traders, is likely to be good. But in terms of the direct impact, again, it's a new tax. We don't have figures on the incidence yet, but it's likely to be a good measure.
Yes, and finishing up, the issue of CRB. Again, a very familiar term amongst Kenyans. And the president say, for a moment, to temporarily stop CRB listing for individuals, for small businesses, for even corporations. How will this, trickle down to the ground to make sure that people have money in their pockets?
Well, this is likely to have an impact on people who have taken up loans but are unable to pay. We know a lot of people have been laid off. A lot of people have taken pay cuts. So if they had taken up loans, this measure to prevent them from being listed in case of default will put them in good standing in terms of their future endeavors or any future attempts by them to borrow. Because they will not have been listed as defaulters. So I think it's a welcome measure, some relief, any kind of relief to the ordinary Kenyan. We know that I saw a study that a lot of Kenyans, actually a majority, are spending more than they earn. So this is likely to have an impact on quite a broad group.
Well, some great insights there, Noah Kipkemboi, just talking to some of the other analysts out there and what are their anticipations ahead of this particular issue. We want to go on a quick commercial break. We still have much more coming up after this.